Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next edition of the Wellbeing Specialists. And today we've got a special program for you. My name's Tony Neal, and I help individuals and business owners via my customised retreats, workshops, and consultation to maximise their feelings of vibrance, happiness, health, and happiness and success. Now, I'd love to introduce to you Ian.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you again. Me and Tony, of course, we form the Wellbeing Specialist, Tony.
Yes.
And we have a very, very, very special session today because we have a very, very, very special guest with us today. Shawn, would you like to say a big hello to our audience?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on.
Great to have you with us. So just quickly going through Shawn's brief bio. So Shawn is a registered women's counsellor and coach, and she assists women reclaim their time, voice, values, and vision. In the process, creating love, leadership, and happiness through their lives. Now, we've got a very special topic, which Shawn's going to tell us all about tonight, and it's called How to Practice Self-Care While Grieving. So tell us all about this very important topic, Shawn.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much for having me on, both of you. It's a pleasure. Yes, how to practice self-care while you're grieving. It is a big challenge for a lot of people, and so I thought this would be a really important topic for everyone, not just women, but men as well, to really practice what you can do while you grieve. There are a few things that you can do while you grieve, and we have been through in 2020 a lot of grievance. And what I found with a lot of my clients is that they really didn't practice self-care when they were grieving. Some of them lost a job, some of them just wanted to start a business but couldn't start a business because they weren't sure what to do, and things like that. So what I actually practiced with them and taught them to do is to learn to love themselves. And learning to love themselves is part of self-care. And so we go through a process and understand exactly how we can love ourselves. And then in that journey that we took, we learned how to practice self-care. Practice self-care is so important while grieving. It is probably the number one on the list, and that is because when you're grieving, you are obviously going through an emotional roller coaster ride. One day you might be happy, the next day you might be sad, the next time you might be okay, you're content with what's going on. There's different avenues and stages in grief that people go through, and it's so important to practice self-care while you're doing it. And that's really taking care of your well-being, as this is the well-being specialist, taking care of your well-being. So eating healthy, eating right, exercising, talking to a friend, talking to a specialist like myself, and maybe somebody like Ian as well, things like that. So practicing self-care is really high on the list, and that's why I wanted to speak about it today.
You mentioned the stages of grieving. Can maybe just give us a bit more detail about that as well, Shawn?
Yeah, the stages of grieving, there's a few different things that you can practice. So the first step is accepting that you're actually grieving. So you've lost something. You've lost a loved one, you've lost a job, you've lost something in your life. And getting to that acceptance stage can be very challenging for a lot of people. And what we need to do as individuals, as me as a counselor, that's what I do. I actually get them to accept that they are grieving, and then we can move past and go to the next stage. And they can actually feel what they're feeling, the emotions come out, and then we go from there. So there are different steps, as I said. So we do grief, as I said, grief is really challenging for a lot of people, and acceptance is number one. The second one is, okay, you can go through denial. And when you go through denial, you need to go back to acceptance. So it's a bit of a cycle, because some people don't understand what their grief is and how to deal with it. So there is different ways that you can do the steps and understand how you're grieving at each step. But those two take a lot longer than the rest of them. So there's acceptance, then denial, then you can accept again, and then you can really share those emotions with family, friends, or somebody like a counselor, and move past, okay, how are we going to do this? How can I take care of myself to really understand what my true emotions are and what I'm going through at the time?
Shawn, typically what type of emotions usually come up through grief?
A lot of emotions. Most of our emotions come up in grief. From experience, my self-experience, and for clients, that would be anger. Anger comes up almost straight away, because especially if you've lost a loved one, they don't understand exactly what's happened. They can't believe that they've lost that person. They're a little bit frustrated. They can't change it. It's really a loss of control.
Yep.
And so anger comes up, and then you go to sadness, and then you go to that acceptance stage of grief. And then you can become content with it. But grief is so different for so many people, that people could grieve for a year, or they could grieve for 10 years. So it depends on the situation, really.
Does it also depend on the person's culture? Have you found that there's differences there?
Well, to be honest, Tony, I haven't had that many different cultures. I've had Canadian, as I'm Canadian. I've had Australian, mostly Australian, people from New Zealand, and people from America. And we all pretty much grieve very similar. It just takes a different time to grieve. Yeah.
Awesome. And Shawn, if we can sort of master the art of self-care while grieving, what are some of the massive benefits that come from that?
Benefits for self-care while you're grieving?
Yeah.
It actually boosts your immune system, and so you don't get sick. You're not ill. It also boosts your self-esteem. So sometimes when people are grieving, they may go into a depression, and so it really does help their self-esteem and makes sure that they don't go into that depression and that deep depression. Yep. So they do, self-care is so important through basically self-esteem and your immune system. Those are the best ones, because if you don't take care of yourself, then you eventually get ill.
Shawn, I'm very curious what sort of led you into your career. So was there any one event that led you to be a women's counsellor and coach?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Yes, well, there were different avenues that I took, and I used to work with children, and I loved the development of children and learning their emotions and things like that. But then I went through to children to working with drug and alcohol, and I worked with a lot of men and women in drug and alcohol. And from before I was a counselor of drug and alcohol, I actually had my own really big loss.
Yes.
And my mother passed away at a young age. My sister was quite young. She was 20 at the time. I was 30 at the time. And it was a huge, huge thing for both of us, because, well, you think your parents are going to last forever, right? But you don't actually think that your parent is going to pass away at 62.
Yep.
And I think that was the biggest shock. See, that is another part in grief, is that you go through that shock phase.
Yep.
And with my sister and I, we had our family, but we really only had each other. I had to go back to Canada for a year, and we went through some of the grieving process, but I didn't really grieve until I moved back to Australia. And I had to do a lot on my own. And I feel that sometimes in grief, you do need to do a little bit on your own, but you also need that guidance for a counselor. And I didn't really find that I had the right woman to talk to.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, how can I build a business and really reach out to other women that might be going through different griefs that they don't know how to reach out and say, help me. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started this business. And I really absolutely am so passionate about it because there are so many women out there. I understand that men go through it, grief too, and men go through a lot of stuff too. But I wanted to niche it down and go with my heart, really. I wanted to go with my heart and my instinct and find out, okay, well, if it's me and my sister, a younger girl, 20-year-old girl that goes through this, there's so many other women out there that go through it as well.
Yeah.
And people asking for help is quite hard, I think. For a lot of women in particular, they kind of go, oh, no, I can do it all. I can do it all. Especially young moms. I have a lot of clients that are young moms, and they said, if you didn't reach out to me more than once, I don't think I would do it because they'd be too afraid. So that's why I do what I do.
Beautiful.
And you mentioned before about women and men, both suffering from grief. Do they actually respond differently in any way, or are they sort of quite universal between the genders?
Well, I found when I was working in the counselling space in drug and alcohol that it's quite hard for men to open up. Women open up more because they express their emotions a little bit more. They like to talk, and men bottle it up inside. And
women like to talk. Oh,
we do. We all like to talk. There's no secret.
Oh my goodness.
There's no secret there, is there, Ian?
No, that's right. I think you're so right there, Shawn, because in our retreats, predominantly the amount of clients that we get is basically 80% female and only 20% men, because I think the females really believe in looking after themselves and opening themselves up. Men have got this idea, I'm invulnerable, nothing, I can cope with anything, and that's not really true.
Yeah, and it takes a long time. I had a client once. He was a male, and he was in his 40s, and it was very challenging for him to open up until our 12th session together. There were a couple sessions that he didn't say a word. I said, okay, we're going to sit here, and I'm going to hold this space for you. You don't have to talk. We can just sit here. And we did for 2 sessions. For 1 hour, we sat there and didn't speak, because that's the way he was. That was how comfortable he was. But then by the 12th session, he started opening up because it was building the trust with him and myself. And I think that was the big thing as well. To trust a woman and a counselor at the same time could be quite challenging for men. I don't know. What do you think, Tony and Ian?
Yeah, I think that could be the case, right? I think it's just like men like to have secret men's business and women like to have secret women's business. And sometimes it's a bit hard between the two genders. So I think you're right. I think it's this the trust between genders is a big thing, because I've noticed that when I go to the health retreats, the female clients would like to sort of be mentored by my wife rather than myself, because it's the female contact. Yeah,
I think females are more comfortable with females. They're more comfortable with opening up to more females, and I think I was a bit like that too. That's why I think, well, if I was a bit like that, then there's definitely more women out there that feel that way. So that's why I do more of the one-on-one, face-to-face, but I also do Zoom calls, which is still intimate but confidential.
I think it also works the same other way, Shawn, in that I remember when I was doing, and I still am, but when I was initially doing work in the weight loss space, I had a unusually high proportion of male clients. I mean, it's turned around now. I mean, I sort of probably now, like what Tony was saying, 80% female, 20% male. But early on, it was, probably more like 50-50, maybe even more, slightly more men, which was really interesting. And I think that possibly would have been because, men might have felt more comfortable dealing with a male,
Yes.
when it came to any challenges they have, rather than always working with a female. So, yeah, very.
The question for you, the question for you, Shawn. Can you tell us of a most satisfying case that you had where the outcome was really good? Have you got a pearl for us?
Yes. Okay. Well, I have a couple, so I'll think of one. There was this one lady. She was a little bit younger. She was going through quite. She actually came. I'll tell you this. Came to me for to want an intimate relationship,
Yeah.
right? And she had never had an intimate relationship before. But what we found on our journey of counseling and coaching was that she really needed to look at herself and take care of herself and understand what grief that she had gone through that she hadn't worked through yet.
Yep.
So a lot of people push grief under the rug and they just go, no, it's there, but I'm just going to ignore it. And I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it. And then as soon as they ignore it,
yep,
they think, well, okay, well, it's going to come up again. And it came up for her. So what we did was we went back all the way back to childhood and went through every step of where she grieved, how it was that she grieved, and the relationship she's had with her mother, her father, and different relationships in her life. At the time, she was really stressed out at work as well, and she wanted to resign. She was having high anxiety, and everything else had come up for her. So she was on complete overwhelm. We had 11 sessions together. And after those 11 sessions, she gave me this beautiful testimonial and said, oh my gosh, if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would be sitting here today starting my own business. She had started her own business. She had been really happy with herself and really understood, okay, well, I am important and this is who I am, and I'm not going to let anyone tell me otherwise. So she was basically allowing the people in her life to tell her who she was, which was all negative stuff. It was all negative, and she came out and said, no, I'm a positive person. We did affirmations together. She did affirmations every single day. She started meditating. She did a lot of different tips and tools that I gave her, plus things that she decided that she wanted to do. And she's living the life now and absolutely very happy.
Beautiful.
You sort of mentioned there, you sort of hinted at least, some of the conditioning that we all go through, particularly in that sort of 0 to 7 year time frame. We sort of, like sponges, sort of take on, the beliefs and values of our parents and who we look up to. So do you find at all, Shawn, that you have to sort of undo some of those if they're quite negative with your clients?
Yes, there is a lot of negativity when clients come to me. The reason why they reach out in the first place is because they're over stressed and they just don't know why they're so stressed. But then the underlying stress is the negative talk in their heads that is not actually them. And so, yes, we do work around putting positive self-talk into their minds and saying, actually, that's not me. That's that other person telling me that. Okay, hold on. Why did I allow that person to tell me that? And then they have these, what you call light bulb moments. And that's when we work through that processes. And that part is a part of self-care. All the grievances in their childhood, teenage years, and even early adulthood. that's what we go through, and we have to go stage by stage because each, I guess, event happening in their life had a different memory, had a different trigger, and had a different grievance.
But isn't it amazing, though, how when we grow up, we take on so many of the beliefs and values of our parents, though, don't we?
Totally. Yes. 100%. I don't know about you, but I did a lot. And I thought, oh, yeah, go on. Sorry, Tony.
I found that it's either the exact opposite or it's exactly the same, because it depends on what your parents have been saying. For instance, your parents might say, "Oh, you'll never amount to much." One person will say, "I'm going to prove these buggers wrong," and be horrific, and the other ones will say, "Oh, yeah, that must be true," and then they have they don't live up to their highest value that they could have been.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, it's one or the other. That's right, Tony.
Yeah.
And is it also true, and I want to see what your thoughts are on this, that we often also marry or have a partner who is a reflection of one of our parents? Have you sort of noticed that at all, Shawn?
Oh, wow. Yes. 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 And it's quite ironic that happens. And then you go, oh, they might have the good traits and the not so good traits, but you love them anyway.
That's true.
Just like your parents, right?
And at the end of the day, you finish up being like them, right?
Yeah. But you mirror each other, don't you? You also mirror each other.
That's
and
right.
So what your good things are and what their good things are might be totally different. I know with that's very similar to my partner. What I'm not good at is he's good at, and vice versa. And we actually challenge each other on things, which I believe is really good for a relationship. And that's another thing that I help women with. Yeah.
A true yin and yang, eh?
Yeah.
Just imagine if you're both the same.
I don't think it would work, Tony.
No, you'd be fighting each other, right?
I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. I heard this recently. I just be hear your interpretational thoughts on this, Shawn. That often when we're attracted to a partner, someone we're meeting, we really sort of like them. It's often the differences that we're really attracted to. So we're like we do certain things in a certain way, but they're very different. They've got very different mannerisms, and we like something about them that's sort of missing in our lives. But I then heard that unless you then grow as a couple, those differences can then become real issues later on, because they're so different from you that starts to really piss you off down the track, because you think, why can't they just be like me? Why can't they just be like me?
That's right. Why can't you be like me?
Have you sort of had any experiences like that, or would you relate to that, or would you sort of dispute that sort of thinking?
I guess it depends on the couple, really. Some couples are very comfortable in the way they are, and they could be together for 20, 30 years and be sufficient with just being there. But there are other couples, and I can only speak for myself here, and that is that we like to challenge each other, and we also like to grow together, because that's just who we are. Like, I wanted to attract somebody that was opposite to me, but with the same values as myself. And so if I couldn't grow with him, then it just wouldn't work, because I'm constantly working on myself all the time. And so is he.
So is he a therapist as well?
No, he's not. But he is a business owner.
Oh, okay.
And you don't do therapy on your partner, do you?
No, I have tried that, and I thought he needs to go and see somebody else.
The truth is, you do therapy on each other.
Well, I guess you kind of do in a way, don't you?
That's right,
I'm sure Tony and Ian, you kind of do that, don't you?
That's right, we do.
Yeah. Well, I've actually heard it said also that the most challenging clients you can ever have are either your family or your friends.
And that's absolutely true.
That's very interesting.
It's true.
Absolutely true,
And
right?
anyway, it's part of self-care. That's practicing self-care as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and helping each other out.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
I'm
Now,
just
can you
noticing the time now. So what tips have you got for our audience there,
Yes.
Shawn? So if there was any one big tip, what would it be?
The biggest tip that I would say is practicing gratitude.
That's a good
When
one.
you're grieving, a lot of people just forget, I am grateful for this chair I'm sitting on. Like this, it's the small things in life to practice gratitude, and that actually reduces, it's scientifically proven that it reduces pain. And that's not pain, just pain in your joints. It's pain all over your head, mental health, everything. Yes. Practicing gratitude, I 100% would say that every single day. I practice it every day, and it works wonders. Definitely practice gratitude. We are so blessed, especially in Australia, so blessed to be in a country like this. Because there are a lot of countries right now that we probably wouldn't want to be in.
Absolutely. And what about you, Ian? What's your biggest takeaway out of today?
Look, I actually really liked your discussion about the different stages of grieving. I was actually just doing a process earlier on today about grieving with a very different modality, and I was just really interested to sort of see a sort of step through those different stages, which I thought was really, really interesting. And how you can also loop back, you were saying, between acceptance and, denial, sort of flipping backwards and forwards between them.
Yeah.
Do they actually form like a bit of a hierarchy in a sense, Shawn, that you have to sort of deal with one stage before you can sort of effectively move on to the next one? Or were they just sort of, they're more in a flat sort of
well, as I said, it can be a circle and a cycle all the time. So
right.
you can accept. The biggest one is acceptance, so that you can move forward and understand your grief and how you grieve.
Yep.
But denial sometimes comes back into it because they go, oh, where are they? Oh, for instance, you can pick up a phone. I've done it before. Oh, I'm going to call mom. Oh, wait. Nope. Not going to call her. Can't call her.
Yes.
It's things like that. And that's like the denial stage of, okay, I've accepted it, but I'm still in denial that she's gone off this earth.
Yes. And what about you, Tony? What's your biggest takeaway from this awesome presentation today?
Well, my biggest takeaway is the word self-care. And when I think about it, how much time do we really spend on ourselves? That is indeed the question, because I look at most of the clients that I have at our retreats, they put their own self-care down the bottom of the list, or not even there at all. And they wonder why they're so stressed out, they're overweight, they've got all these other illnesses and things like that. Self-care is the most important thing of the whole lot. When we come to think about it, at our work, if we're at 50% of our best, what are we going to produce? 50%. How are we going to relate with our partners? If we're not feeling good, we'll be grumpy and we cause problems. It's all these things are so important, and I love what you say about gratitude there, Shawn. I think that's one of the keys, and also the mindfulness, to be able to be aware of what you're doing and take care of yourself. I think that was a great point, that how you sort of brought that out. I think that was really good. And I love your openness too, Shawn, how you revealed about yourself and how you became a counsellor.
Thank you, Tony.
Your path towards that, and what's driven you that, because you actually got the integrity. You've been there and you've done it. And so you understand what it is to feel and actually go through that process. So I think that's a great thing for you to have done that, been through that process, because that's something that you've learned, and obviously you can bring it you can carry that across to all your clients and help them go forward. So
definitely. And I think people, and just one more thing, I think people that like realness these days, they don't like somebody just to be, oh, I haven't gone through anything, I'm a perfect person, because that's just not real anymore. It never was, but I think that more people really just want a real person and say, okay, I know what you're going through. And so that's what I portray.
And you've got a couple of resources, I believe, for our awesome listeners, Shawn.
Yes, I have. Oh, sorry, Tony.
I'll on the screen. Okay, off you go.
Yes, people can contact me via email, as you see it on the screen, ShawnLMathews@outlook.com, or my website is ShawnMathewsOAH.com. My business name is Open Arms Health, and you can book in a 15-minute complimentary call, but I'm giving away a free session. So whoever is the first three people that would like a free session, I'm very open to that.
And
well, you better hurry up, because Ian and myself might elbow our way to the top of the queue. So hurry up, guys, and get going.
Is this only open to women, Shawn, or is it open to men as well?
Oh, I would just say it was open to women.
Why don't you wear a dress and book it a session?
Ian, people can come to you, can't they, Ian?
Sure. I tell you a funny story just on this point about gender. My daughter, when she was going through secondary school, she was having a bit of a challenge with maths. Yeah, she came to see me because I'm coming from an engineering background. I sort of talk numbers day and night. She said to me, Dad, I don't know what it is, but, women explain these things differently than men do. What you're saying doesn't actually make any sense to me. I said, I know what I'll do. Let me go put a dress on. I'll come back and I'll sort it out for you right away. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work that way, but that's another story. But anyway,
hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I do mostly work with women, but I am open to working with men if there is men that are watching that would like some sessions. Okay, Tony, you're number one. Hands up.
That's been extremely generous. Thank you so much, Shawn. So maybe any final comments before we wrap things up for today? You,
yeah, I'd like to acknowledge Shawn. I think it's been fun having you on the show, and you've given us such pearls of wisdom with what you've been saying. And I encourage our audience, if you know somebody in need, Shawn is your lady to help you go forward. I think that's a big topic, grief. There's a lot of us who carry grief on our shoulders, and we don't need to carry that. Yeah. So on that note, I'd like to say that our next wellbeing specialist show is on February the 11th. So everyone be there, because we love doing these shows, don't we, Ian? We get such a kick out of it, and we love having guests on board. And on that note, I think we'll say goodbye, and we'll just put up our contact list here. If you want to contact us, this is how you contact us. Just jump on our Facebook account and please put some comments, or even if you want to suggest a topic, please go ahead and suggest topics that we can talk about. So on that note, I will bid everyone goodbye, and thank you, Shawn, so much for appearing, and we'd love you to come again one other time and relate another magnificent discussion with us.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much for having me on. I loved it.
Thank you, Shawn. Awesome.
Thanks, Ian. You're a champ, mate.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.